Toronto, stay tuned right here with Toronto Mike, and it goes a little something like this. Hit it!
What up, Mike? Toronto. VK on the beat. Check. I'm in Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm from Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm in Toronto like we wanna get the city love. My city love me back for my city love.
Welcome to episode 1667 of Toronto Mic'd. Proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery, a fiercely independent craft brewery who believes in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. Order online for free local home delivery in the GTA. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. Yes, We Are Open, an award-winning podcast from Moneris, hosted by FOTM Al Grego. Silverwax.ca. Use the promo code TorontoMike10 at checkout and save 10%. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. Building Toronto's Skyline, a podcast and book from Nick Iones, sponsored by Fusion Corp Construction Management, Inc. And Ridley Funeral Home, pillars of the community since 1921. Joining me today, making his Toronto Mic debut, is Gil Moore. Welcome, Gil.
Hey, nice to be here.
Awesome to have you here, man. We're going to talk about Music Monday, but I'm told I get you for an entire 60 minutes, so I've got my Gil Moore questions loaded up. Are you ready?
I am. Let them fly.
Well, firstly, I produced the Humble and Fred show, and Humble Howard Glassman tells me that you guys have done quite a bit of golfing. Is that a true or false statement from Humble Howard Glassman?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Yeah, we're golf buds. So,
how good a golfer is Howard? Because he keeps winning these awards. Is it like when Donald Trump wins an award and he just makes it up, or is this real?
No, it's real. Howard's outstanding in golf. You won't find.
You have to put the qualifier in golf.
Well, you won't find anybody else, I don't think, in the music business that can keep up with him. You know, maybe Tom Cochran.
Well, I was going to ask about Tom, who I got to meet last summer at the Joe Carter Classic. Tom Cochran, Humble Howard, who's the better golfer?
Oh my God, that would be like a cage or one of those UFC cage matches.
Right.
I mean, right now I'm talking to Tom a lot, and I know that he's had 6 or 7 successive rounds under 75 in the last 14 days. So
what?
That's a serious run. That is. Now, I don't know if Howard's playing right now. Is he up here?
Well, he just came back from Mexico.
Okay,
where
so
he
is
played
playing
like 6 times in 7 days. I think he was out yesterday.
Yeah, so then there you go. Those guys are playing so much. Tom's been in Arizona. Humble's been doing his tour. Hard to say. I mean, it would be, like I said, it would be a cage match between those two.
How's your game these days?
Well, non-existent this winter because I've been working on other stuff.
Right.
And I don't like travel. Anybody that knows me knows I can't stand it. So, I've sort of foregone the Florida, the Arizona, the usual stuff I used to do. So my game gets pretty rusty, but I got a gym in my house, so I'm swinging one of these weighted swing aids, trying to stay limber and things like that. And I'm looking forward to the ranges opening soon, and
awesome.
Then we'll see how rusty or whatever I am when I get out there.
I'm thinking of, you said Rusty, and I'm thinking of the can rock band Rusty. Has Rusty ever recorded an album at Metalworks Studios?
Don't know that one.
Check that out.
That's a trivia question for for future reference.
I'll ask Ken or Scott maybe. But Tom Cochran, there's a guy who has recorded at Metalworks Studios.
Yeah, many times.
Some big albums too.
Great stuff. I mean, we're very proud of the work that we were involved in. Very proud of Tom, obviously. I mean, he's my buddy and so on. But just respecting him as an artist is a whole other kettle of fish. What he's done in Canada with his music and so on. So, yeah, Metalworks has been a little part of that legacy, and we're very proud of it.
Well, later in this convo, now that I have you held captive, we're going to get back to Metalworks Studios. It's such a mind-blowing list of albums that have been recorded there. We're going to get back to it, but here's a fun fact. So, Gil, yesterday sitting in that chair was Glenn Milcham, who is the drummer for Blue Rodeo. Tomorrow sitting in that chair is Ian Blurton, because Change of Heart has a new album. And here's the fun fact mind blow for you. And I think you might know where it's going. But Glenn Milcham, obviously Ian Blurton, and yourself, you all played on Change of Heart's classic album, Smile. You're credited with playing the gong on this album. Do you remember playing on Change of Heart's Smile in 1992?
Stumped. I don't.
See, that's wild. So you're credited as playing the gong. And then I asked Jason Schneider, like, what track is he playing the gong? And Jason's like, whatever track has gong on it. Okay, so I'll be asking Ian tomorrow, but you don't have any memory of contributing your gong playing to Smile.
No, but let's face it. Gong is essential, and
gotta have more gong.
You got to have more gong. I mean, that's a certainty. And
who's calling you? Is that Tom Cochran? If it's Tom, put him on speakerphone.
It could be. No, it's not. We'll just shut that right off.
All right,
Sorry
that's okay.
about
No,
that.
that's okay. I need to let Ian know that the gong contribution to Smile wasn't memorable enough. But you've done a lot of stuff in your career. You're forgiven.
Yeah, and to this point, I have not suffered from spontaneous combustion, which is another amazing trivia fact.
Also,
when talking to drummers, you should always consider that.
And they filmed a sequel. You know
Yes, I've heard.
Okay, well, let's see if I'll meet you at the premiere. We're going to see the Spinal Tap sequel. And you, my friend, as a singing drummer. So we're going to get into this, the origin story. Of course, we're going to talk about Music Monday, and we're going to get back to Metalworks. We're going to cover a lot of ground. But I think singing drummers are kind of rad. Like when I think of Lee Von Helm back there, of course, Phil Collins, yourself, Dave Grohl. Pretty cool. Like we don't think of drummers as singers, but when you do see someone behind the kit singing, it's killer.
Well, I've been asked about that many times, and I've always said the same thing. It's like being a plumber and an electrician on the same construction site. At a certain point, you try to do both things at once. You're going to have your hand on the drain, and you're going to have your other hand in the 240 volts, and something really bad's going to happen. But it was a lot of fun.
Jeez. Do you want to go way back with me? You want to go way back? Because I feel like we need to capture this, and this will be like the definitive Gil Moore.
Sure, take your shot.
Hey, when people say Gil Moore's coming over, do you think they expect the killer Doug Gilmour? Like they're like has that ever happened?
It's interesting. Like I've had a lot of confusion with Doug Gilmour and I, and Doug and I've talked about it, and it's quite funny actually. Yeah, I guess they have to temper your expectations. I played hockey. I wanted to be Doug Gilmour. I was just not good enough. That's how I got into drums. Is I had to, do something that I thought I could do because
a lot of musicians, I couldn't cut it. A lot of musicians, I feel, they play hockey. Like I know there's a lot of Canadian musicians play goaltender, for example,
or still play hockey. Like I just hung up from Andy Curran on my way over here from Envy of None, and he's a really good hockey player. Still is.
All right, and yesterday's guest, Glenn Milcham, played on the solo release, 1990 solo release for Andy Curran.
Yeah, there you go.
It's all coming full circle. This is going to be good. Shout out to Monkey Bars. Okay. Tell me just a little bit before we get to the Triumph origin story about Sherman and Peabody. This is sort of the pre-Triumph Gil Moore band?
Well, I was just a kid, and Buzz Sherman, God rest his soul, was sort of leading the rock and roll troops at Streetsville High School, so to speak. Buzz was kind of ahead of his time and ended up, encouraging me, I'll say, with drums, because I started out with my buddy Fred Powell asking the band in the high school at the time called the Bow Street Runners, can Fred and I be roadies? Because we were just trying to get into something, and the only way to get into something was to hang around. And they said, well, not if you want to get paid. And we said, well, we don't want to get paid. We just want to be there. So Fred and I became free roadies. And the drummer I got to watch the drummer in the band up close and set up his drums and tear his drums down and so on. And Buzz started to notice me, and eventually he recruited me. When Wayne Wilson, who was a really good drummer from Whiskey Howl, who was in Sherman and Peabody at the time, and Wayne left. The band was, like a lot of bands in those eras. There were a lot of fights, a lot of guys getting kicked out, a lot of guys getting pulled in, and so on and so forth. So I went for the audition, and that was the first audition I passed as a kid drummer. I'd failed a couple auditions prior to that, so you kind of lick your wounds after you don't make the grade. But when I got the call up to the major leagues, I guess that's what it felt like. Sure, because they had a real agent, they had real jobs, they were. Looks like they were going to record. It was all this big time stuff.
Greg Godovitz is in this band.
Oh yeah, Greg was he was amazing. Like he kind of took me under his wing, and we're still very good friends. And it was quite the experience, learning to eat spaghetti every single day in that house up in Willowdale. Greg was a pretty good chef as far as spaghetti was concerned.
Shout out to FOTM Gatto, by the way. I feel like you've now served enough time. You're officially an FOTM. That means friend of Toronto Mike. Okay, so you're in another esteemed Hall of Fame here. But so you're in Sherman and Peabody, and then I'm wondering, is it at some point you realize you want to start your own thing and you want to start Triumph?
Well, I realized in Sherman and Peabody that one way or the other, I either had to get moving or I was going to get killed, because there was a lot of violence in that band, and it was
real violence, or
it was kind of like it was fake violence, but it was nonetheless real at the same time. There was a lot of throwing of guitars and heaving of this and
is it this kind of violence?
Yeah,
Is it a work or a shoot, like a WWF style?
Like at a rehearsal, you had to duck occasionally, right? So. It was a way to sort of learn, like I said, I was kind of a kid at the time, and but I loved all those guys, and when I got out of that, I just kind of bounced around with a few more versions of that band, and then a few more versions of another band called Abernathy Shagnaster that was closely associated with it. And, Greg and I played together, various times, and some of the other guys as well. And it was an assortment of scoundrels. Let's put it that way.
Okay, Abernathy Shagnaster rolls right off the tongue. Who came up with that name?
An agent, a guy named Larry Cuthbertson.
Okay, Abernathy Shagnaster. Is it fair to say that is Triumph?
No, but it is the seeds, let's put it that way. So where that band ended up, you had Mike Levine, who I had recruited to play in that band, which was a not serious band, let's put it that way. It was go play the gigs and figure out another way to make a living, because trying to be a rock star is just too hard to do.
Right.
And we had a phenomenal guitar player who's left us a few years ago, God rest his, Freddie Keeler, right. Whose son plays in Death Below 1979.
Of course, Death Above
1979. Excuse me.
It's okay. That's the cover band from below, but the above, yeah.
So Freddie was one of the greatest guitar players. Played with David Clayton Thomas, for example, in the Shays. One of Toronto's greatest guitar players, along with Dominic Triano and some of the other great players. And Freddie was in the band, and we had a keyboard player as well named Peter Young. So we were at a point where Mike was a sort of he knew what he was doing when it came to records and so on. So he was a little more advanced than we were. He was a few years older, and he got us into the studio, and we recorded a single, and that single was the first Triumph single, and that's Freddie Keeler on guitar and Mike and I. The song's called Hobo.
I took you in and I tried to make you feel at home. Everything I did for you always turned out wrong. So wrong. Oh, 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 oh. Why's our friend of mine? Oh, 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 oh. Why's our friend of mine? Everything I did for you always turned out wrong. So wrong.
And this is on Attic Records, right?
On Attic Records, and that song, actually, the history there is some of my friends from Rhinoceros, which became Blackstone Rangers in Toronto. John Finley, in fact, I think wrote the song, or perhaps John and some of the other guys who were ex-John and Lee and the Checkmates members, Peter Hodgson, Mike Fonfera, folks like that.
And, I mean, now we've lost them both, sadly. Shout out to Ridley Funeral Home. But Al Mayer has been on the program, and we talked quite a bit about Attic. But what was it like, just tell me what it was like signing to Attic. I guess we're going back to 1975 here.
Yeah, maybe it was, it would have been 74.
74.
And, like I said, Mike was a little more advanced. So by that time, we had found Rick, and that's when Mike and I decided, okay, we're going to take this seriously again. Part-time bands and, playing covers and all that, forget it. We're going to really do something here. So we recruited Rick, and getting signed to Attic which was Mike's doing, was kind of a master stroke, because that got us going, got that single out, which, by the way, little known fact, that song was number 1 in, of all places, Dryden, Ontario.
You know what they say, no Dryden, no triumph.
It was like, we got the call from the label, and they go, guess what, guys? The good news and the bad news. You got a number 1 record. The bad news is it's only in Dryden, Ontario. Everywhere else, it's a stiff.
And there's a B-side, Got to Get You Back in My Life. But like you said, non-charting, the single, Hobo. But, I mean, sounded great there. But I need you to dive into it. I'm sorry Gil, I'm going to need more detail on we added Rick Emmett element there, because you also, you shed Fred and Peter, right? Like, you become a true trio. So, like, how does that go down, that you become a trio and you add Rick Emmett?
Well, so we kind of just stopped doing what we were doing. So there was a gasp in between where Mike and I let the other guys know, hey, we're going to go do something different. And we had another guitar player before Rick, which did not work out. And then we had a couple guitar players that we considered before Rick that didn't work out. So the whole thing might have just collapsed as a Mike Gill dream that never happened, were it not for Neil Dixon, who said, hey, I have a guitar player and you guys should check him out. And Rick was playing in Act 3, a band at the time, and they were playing right near where we're sitting right now. They were playing at the Hollywood Tavern.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. And so Mike and I went to the Hollywood Tavern, and we saw Rick, and he was mind-blowing. We just went, yeah, that's the guy. Like, he's exactly what we envisioned. We always thought, we want to have a 3-piece band. We're kind of thinking of, like Hendrix, Cream, that sort of thing where you have, power trio with a Mondo guitar presence. And, we wanted to have sort of an outrageous, an atmospheric show, I'll say, something that would really provide a lot of theater to sort of enhance what was going on musically, create a lot of excitement, and also surround a 3-piece band, because you only have 3 guys on stage. If Rick was singing, this is part of the reason why I ended up singing so much, was because if Rick was singing, he couldn't move around the stage. He couldn't, really kind of, he'd just be stuck at his microphone. And so that was the idea, that with the 3-piece, as long as I could carry enough vocals, then, Rick and Mike could, be at the stage front, work the lights, work the audience, work each other.
And you've seen Levon Helm do it, and you've seen Phil Collins do it at this point, right? Like.
Yeah, I mean, Levon was legendary. I mean, they all were. All the guys in the band were legendary, and Levon had a great singing voice, and he was one heck of a drummer at the same time. He's an inspiration for sure.
Okay, very cool. Now, was it easy to convince Rick? Like, was Rick eager to join you and Mike, or did you did it take any convincing to get Rick Emmett to come on board and join Triumph?
It took jamming, to see if there was a musical, secret sauce that was going to emanate from the 3 of us playing together. Mike and I were blues guys, and Rick was not. So Rick was sort of coming from the more progressive side of rock at the time. Like, the bands that had influenced him were more likely to be, European bands that were playing sort of more avant-garde music, whereas Mike and I grew up as soul brothers, and and more in that vein. So it was really kind of an interesting group of chefs in the kitchen, so to speak, musically.
Do you think, like looking back, do you think it was tough for Rick because there was an established duo, and he's always going to be the new guy in?
Well, I think he felt like we had something already going. Because we already had. This was the crazy thing. Before we even were in a position to have a band, we had a record deal, if you know what I mean. And we also had posters that we had made. And there was no band members on the posters because we didn't have a guitar player. So Mike and I had this crazy idea. I know, we'll make up a poster that just looks really compelling.
Right.
People will want to come and see us because of our poster. And we'll figure out the guitar player part when we get around to it. So when we find that guitar player. So that's what we did.
So quick hello to those joining on the live stream. So podcasts can't be live. This is, as you know, as a technical guy, because I got a link to an MP3. So this drops as a podcast after we record. But we are live streaming at live.torontomike.com. And I'm just checking in really quickly. I want to say hi to Andrew Ward, who says this is amazing. He's loving it. Burlington Rob, a.k.a. Rob Bruce, I'm about to play his favorite Triumph song in like 10 seconds. So, Rob, hold on tight. He just says, check out the glasses on Gil, man. Those are cool glasses.
Well, back to golf. You got to have glasses like this to play golf.
Those are the
and
golfing
same thing
glasses.
for fishing, by the way. My son, Miles, is an incredible fisherman. So he dialed me in on shades. He goes, Dad, what are you doing? Like, you can't fish without shades because it changes what you see in the water, like being able to finesse your vision in the water. And so then I got it dialed in on golf, and I was like, why did I ever play golf without shades? And then it was like, why do I ever drive a car without shades?
I'm in a similar boat, and that pun intended, but like I bike a lot, and I used to bike, just go for a bike ride. And at some point, I think it was my wife who said, you should be wearing shades out there. The sun's bad. And I just switched to shades, and I'm like, why did I ever bike without shades? It's one of those things where you like, until you get there, then you realize like what was wrong. It's like switching to black coffee. And then you're like, how did I ever put like cream and sugar in that thing? It's one of those.
I'm a black coffee guy too.
Me too. Were you always a black coffee guy?
No. We started out like all the idiots,
right.
double.
And it's like then when you try black and you realize, hey, this is what coffee tastes like. You're like, what was I thinking? Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you start looking at people doing the double, like, what an idiot, right? Like suddenly you see somebody, I don't know, fishing or golfing without shades. You're like, what a dummy.
Well,
right?
yeah, I was confused. As a kid, I thought double coffee, and then when you're an adult, you realize no, double means scotch on the rocks.
Right, neat. Now, VP of Sales, he's on the live stream. Hello to you, Midtown Gord. I'm going to get to a question from him later, but you're his favorite band of all time, Triumph. He writes, hi, Gil and Mike. Sorry to just pop in and say hi. I am at work. Just wanted to say Triumph is the greatest, and I miss the band. Look forward to listening to the episodes. Oh, by the way, 1236 points out Mike Fonfera was later in Rough Trade.
Yes.
And we just lost Kevin Staples from Rough Trade.
Yes, we did. Yeah. Kevin, I was just an acquaintance. Mike was a dear friend. Mike, I actually have the organ at Metalworks was hand-selected by Mike Fonfera, who helped me out. And also our C7 Yamaha piano, hand-selected by Mike Fonfera.
And he backed up Lou Reed as well.
Yeah, and he played with Mike played with those variations of the Sherman and Peabody's and Abernathy Shagnaster bands. He played with me in those bands, as did John Finley. Go back a long way with those guys.
Amazing. Okay, so Rob Bruce, who played keyboards for Spoons and Honeymoon Suite as well. Shout out to Bruce. Bruce, I'll see you in a couple of weeks, I guess, for Toast. Let's play his favorite Triumph song of all time. A cover.
Spent
There's some Gil on lead vocals there. That's, of course, Rob Pruce's favorite Triumph song. But here, we're going back. Rocky Mountain Way. Is that like the first Triumph hit in this country?
Are we excluding our number one single in Dryden at this point?
I think we have to make a ruling. Yes, we're going to exclude the Dryden dominance.
Okay. So now that we're not talking Dryden, I think Rocky Mountain Way, and especially in the GTA here, there were other markets too. I mean, back when radio was regional, you could have a number one hit in one city and 100 miles down the road that no one's ever heard of it. But Rocky Mountain Way was pretty pervasive across Canada, actually.
And I've noticed, just noticed chatting with people, the late great Miles Goodwin, for example, that like early hits for a lot of Canadian rock bands are covers, and then they put out their original material, which is kick-ass. But I'm thinking, Could Have Been a Lady was a cover. Dark Side of the Moon? No. Whatever the second big hit by, it doesn't matter, April Wine. Shout out to April Wine. But Rocky Mountain Way, a cover. I'm just wondering, you didn't write that song, but how do you determine in Triumph? I'll give credit to DJ Dream Doctor here. How do you give credit to, how do you decide who's singing the songs in Triumph? Like, is it who wrote the song? How did that get determined in Triumph?
It was just a natural flow. I don't know, we'd start a song and within the first, little back and forths in rehearsals, it would be, Rick, I think this is you. Or it'd be Gil, I think this is you. And it just kind of flowed. That was really it. And it was based on, I guess if something was a little heavier or bluesier, it fell to me.
Right.
And some of the stuff that was the floatier, higher melodies, Rick's...
Ballady stuff?
No, not ballady, I wouldn't say. I mean, Rick's a tenor, okay? And I'm a baritone. So there's right there is sort of a dividing line. Sometimes you would have to sing too high as a baritone, which was ill-advised, but nonetheless, that's what a lot of baritones do. And, it's ill-advised for tenors to try to sing below their range. So we worked it out.
You worked it out. And so it didn't matter who wrote the song. It just, whatever made sense. If it's a rocky, bluesy rocker, that's a Gil jam.
Well, I suppose in the case where Rick would write a song, a lot of times he would write it on guitar, acoustic guitar. So he would write a song or start writing a song at least in the key that he would sing it in. So it more naturally fell to his melodic sense and his tenor voice. And the songs that were more or less jammed out on guitar, a lot of times were heavier songs, and those would be more likely to have, gone my way. Or in some cases, I had the original idea, and I would work with Rick, and I'd go, hey, I got an idea, kind of goes, can you play a guitar part that goes like, this, and I've got this idea for a vocal or whatever. So he would then, of course, when the guitar, he would say, okay, let's figure out what key this is for you. So that, like a song like Rock and Roll Machine, for example, like that's how it would start. Like it'd be, okay, I got an idea. Here's the sort of lyrical thing. Here's the tempo of it. A lot of times drummers start with tempo.
Sure.
Surprise, surprise. And, so it was just that kind of jamming it out on the floor thing that would evolve into the outcome as to who the vocalist would be.
Now, I know Triumph was nominated for multiple Juno Awards. Did you ever win a Juno?
Just the Hall of Fame. The Canadian Music Hall of Fame. A lot of people don't know it. That's a Juno in and of itself. Okay. But no, for Group of the Year, we were great contenders. We just never, it's like a lot of boxers. Those guys that never won, but they were contenders. Yeah, that's what we were.
It's kind of shocking. I think you would win a lot of bar bets if you said, other than the Canadian Music Industry Hall of Fame in 2007, if you were to say, hey, how many Junos did Triumph win? I think we'd all be guessing, was it 4, 5, 6 Junos?
Yeah, everyone thought that. But there's a lot of statistics in Canadian music that are not understood. I remember, we were just talking about my late great friend Miles Goodwin.
Yeah. And
someone was telling me about these lists that come out like, the best Canadian bands of all time,
sure,
blah blah blah. And I remember saying about Miles, who was a good golfer as well, by the way. And I said, you know what? My buddy Miles just happens to have sold more records than anybody. Yeah. And they're like, no, you can't be right. And I said, yes, I'm right. And you can look it up. And you go back statistically and you look at what they were selling I'm talking in Canada here, not in America, but they were knocking it out of the park, album after album after album. And, people say, well, what about the Guess Who? Well, okay, well, go look it up. Just prove it to yourself.
Right.
There's records at what was at the time the Canadian Recording Industry Association, now Music Canada.
Numbers don't lie.
They keep all those stats, right?
And interestingly, now I just remembered chatting with Miles and him telling me that he felt there was and you are at Toronto. I know. Would you call yourself a Toronto band or a Mississauga band? How are you guys identifying?
Well, I'm a Mississauga boy through and through.
I know this. Okay, GTA band. Can I go with GTA?
You can go GTA. I mean, Rick was in the West End and Mike was in Agincourt. So, I mean, we're kind of a crossover.
But Miles felt like the Juno people, the Heartbeat, was in Toronto, and they were a Maritimes band who then moved to Montreal, and he felt they were slighted from the Junos, because I don't think they ever won a Juno either, April Wine. And he felt that was because of a bias against anything east of Ontario.
Yeah, I don't think there was a bias, but there's always a kind of a political trend in organizations. And I think April Wine really got the short end of the stick. I really do. I think April Wine were, they came before us. I remember being at, before they were bigger and they were playing bigger venues. I remember being at a high school in Etobicoke, as a matter of fact, right near here, Martin Grove Collegiate.
Oh, sure, yeah, Eglinton and Martin Grove.
Yeah, and standing in the audience and watching Miles Goodwin. This is, of course, I didn't know who he was. I was just a kid in the audience, but I'm watching him, and I'm going, this guy is unreal, and this band is fantastic. And, that was before they were really on a roll, and they started having records and hits and being all over the radio and so on.
Yeah, a lot of sneaky, big Canadian radio hits from April Wine, for sure. For sure, underappreciated. But I think I can make the same argument for Triumph. Like Triumph, I wonder now, look, time for real talk. I've warmed you up. But do you feel like maybe you were overlooked or slighted because of Rush being a trio from the same place?
No, I don't think so. I feel like Rush, first of all, I have tremendous respect for Rush. For Geddy and Al and Neil, one of the greatest of all time on drums, and they actually opened doors for us in a way, and the reason was the timing of their emergence in America, which was just literally, it must have been 6 months before Triumph, maybe 9 months, and so. Their managers, first of all, helped us, Ray and Vic at the time, with some advice on, do this, don't do that. And I think American audiences were used to spurning Canadian acts for the most part. And they have since then as well. Like Canadian acts have never really had an easy time in America. And many of them have just been shut right out. Whereas Rush was accepted.
Right.
So whether it was that we were from the same city, that we were the same number of musicians, maybe the fact that, Ged and Rick both had high voices, I don't know that, but you can see in the mix online of the people that talk about the two bands. And so it didn't hold us back or anything like that. I think if anything, it helped us. Okay,
awesome. And I know that Rush, I'm sure they recorded multiple times at Metalworks Studios, right?
Yes, they've been at Metalworks many times and recorded some great stuff there. And we're proud of that as well.
But how is it that Rush and Triumph never shared the same stage? Like, that to me is wild.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of that is we would be on tour at the same time. A lot of the times, like I can remember many times, we'd be playing somewhere, Albuquerque, New Mexico, or St. Louis, Missouri, or whatever, and you'd see, oh yeah, in 3 weeks it's Rush, or 3 weeks before you were here, it's Rush. And so we cross paths all the time. It's like a lot of bands that people would assume that we shared the stage with. And, and some we did, big bands with like AC/DC, for example, or Journey or whatever. But it just never happened with Rush.
Just never happened. Few quick hits. Dawn wrote in and said, Gil wrote Disco Sucks on my Rock and Roll Machine album cover at a record store appearance in 1977. I still have that album. So I'm now going to ask you the hard-hitting question. Here it comes. Do you still think disco sucked?
Yeah, I guess my opinion hasn't changed. I like R&B. I mean, I love R&B.
Right.
And I just thought it was, give me the real R&B, give me the guys that really, really did it. And I don't know, somehow to me, disco seemed like taking R&B and just like, I don't know, putting it through the washing machine with Tide or something and taking the real feel out of it and making it monotonous and yuck.
That's not for everybody.
Well, you know what little kids say? I have a granddaughter now. There's a special word that little girls learn at a certain point because both of my daughters learned it, which was yucky. When something wasn't good, they would, Daddy, that's yucky. So I'm going to say about disco to me was yucky.
And if you're signing albums today, you just sign disco is yucky.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, we're going to cook. I realize now, you didn't realize. You're like, Mike, I don't have 7 hours here, so I'm going to cook with gas here. But I'm going to ask you if you have any memories of Canada Jam Festival at Mosport. Mosport, yeah.
Easy for you to say.
I almost called it Molson Park in Barrie. That's a different place here, but and that's the wrong brewery. I'm going to send you home a fresh craft beer from Great Lakes Brewery, by the way.
Oh, lovely.
Brewed right here, not in Mississauga, but south of Etobicoke, and that's close enough, right?
Right. Just don't drink it in the car.
Don't drink that in the car. Drink it when you're at the studio, maybe. But what do you remember about August 26th, 1978? 110,000 people.
Yeah, it was the biggest show, as far as I know, the biggest crowd ever at that point in time in Canada. And it was, the guys that ran Cal Jam, Sandy Perlman and crew that put it on. And it was overwhelming for us because, we weren't really ready for prime time at that stage. So that was the biggest gig that we'd ever played at the time. And a very, different group of musicians and groups. Like that was another thing, that the theme was different in that they had, groups of all different shapes and sizes, from the Doobie Brothers to the Village People. So they were big bands,
right?
But different
genres.
Different genres entirely. And I don't think any drummer likes outdoor shows. I don't know. I've never done a survey of drummers, but when the wind blows, your cymbals start moving,
I never considered this.
Yeah.
Of course.
So when you're trying to sing and play at the same time, the last thing you need is your cymbals to be like wobbling on you,
Yeah, that's no good.
I remember that. We played at, we went on last. So it was
the headliners.
It was dark and the crowd was just, really going strong. And it was a great memory. There's some fuzzy video of it online and great memory.
But not the largest crowd you've played in front of, right?
No, that would have been the US Festival.
Yeah,
which was
1983.
3 times that size, yeah.
I was reading, I was a bit young in 83. Although that is the summer I discovered Blue Jays baseball, 1983, and fell in love.
Okay.
So they were going way back. Although I guess Rick Emmett is more the ball player. That guy loves his baseball.
He does, and he's good at it. And he was into baseball from the entire career of Triumph. Rick had played on baseball teams.
Yeah, I had him out to Christie Pitts. He sang the national anthem, I believe, for a Toronto Maple Leafs baseball game at Christie Pitts last summer. I don't know. Yeah. And it's funny, it's, everything's connected, but Blair Packham was recording with Rick, and Blair Packham drove to pick up Rick and bring him to Christie Pitts, and you can imagine that drive. And I just here to say Blair Packham is my guest on Thursday. So Blair Packham from the Jitters will be here on Thursday. Just a small world story. Okay, so 670,000 people at the US Festival.
Yeah, I don't know what there really was there because they lost track of it.
That's wild.
The lowest count I've ever seen is, 300,000. And that one's probably the highest count I've ever seen. But it was vast, from the stage. It looked like a city that just went out and extended out into the mountains, and the mountains were the backdrop. So it was.
And where was this again?
This was in a place called, it was really near San Bernardino, California, in an area called Glen Helen Park.
Okay.
And Steve Wozniak had reconstructed this park, like he had moved, things with earth moving equipment around to create this area for the concert where they could erect the stage properly and so on and so forth. So there was a tremendous amount of preparation that went into this. It drew from, of course, California, I would say, was mainly, but really there was people flying in from everywhere around America. And I've met people that, went from Canada that went down there that heard about it.
Yeah, it is wild, though, to say, we headlined Canada Jam Festival for 110,000 people, but that's nothing. Wait till you hear what we did in 1983.
Yeah, it was, we were ready for it, though. I mean, when Canada Jam, we were rookies, but by the time the US Festival, rolled around, we were old pros at that point. So it didn't seem that different. And the day before the US Festival, we played at the Tangerine Bowl. There was 55,000 people at the T-Bowl. That was with ZZ Top. And so, you play that and you see a stadium full of people at 55,000, which seems gigantic, say, compared to an arena at 15,000. But then when you go to this outdoor show, you see, well, this is like nothing I've ever seen before.
No, I'm trying to think. I guess we had a couple of big things at Downsview Park. I'm trying to think, I guess, where would you go in Toronto or the GTA to even get close to 100,000 people? You got to do some big thing at Downsview Park, like the Pope's got to come or something like that.
Yeah.
Or the SARS Fest.
Yes, that was massive. I don't know what the numbers were, but it was massive. It was probably in that range.
Why didn't Triumph play SARS stock?
Well, what was the date? I don't think we were performing at that. When was it?
Maybe 2003.
Yeah, so we weren't performing at that stage.
Okay,
we performed again to get. We wanted to do a show for our kids. So when we did the shows that we did in 2008, which were in down near Dallas at Rocklahoma, and we did Sweden, that was the next time that we got on stage.
Okay, so that's like a teaser of things to come here. But I guess I can ask the big question now. So forget SARS stock. That's nothing to me. What I am very interested in, Gil, and this is really the reason you're here. I haven't even started recording yet. I'll start recording right now. Here's the big question. You ready? Yep. Why do I not hear any Gil Moore or Rick Emmett on Tears Are Not Enough in 1985?
What do you mean, why don't you hear us?
What's the best Canadian? You guys are top shelf Canadian musical talent, okay? Neil's there, Joni's there, Getty's there, Gordon Lightfoot, you name it, right? Where were you?
Good question.
I'm upset, man.
I'm trying to remember now, because I know that Rick was on one of those,
but not that one.
But not that one. So probably, I'm going to guess we were on tour.
So so do you have any memory of being asked to be a part of it? And then, of course, we're not available. We're on tour in Dallas or wherever the heck you are.
When you're touring, you get so many asks for so many things. I can't honestly remember, Mike. I don't know. Like, who produced it again? Was that Bob Ezrin or who was it?
No. So it was David Foster.
Oh, God, yes, it was David.
And Bruce Allen.
Who's a lovely guy, by the way, and has been really affectionate toward. When we went into Canada's Walk of Fame, David was there that night, and he was never realized how much he really knew about Triumph and stuff, and we had some really nice conversations.
But, okay, so I had a chat with Randy Bachman fairly recently, and I asked him the same question, because he's another guy. Where's Randy Bachman on Tears Are Not Enough? And he says Bruce Allen was pissed at him, so Bruce Allen blocked him, okay? Did Bruce Allen have any beef with Triumph that was going to block you guys from Tears Are Not Enough?
I don't think so. I love Bruce Allen, but then again, I'll say this. We went through most of our career self-managed. So, like, if you were a manager, think about it. Like, would you be really a big fan of bands that manage themselves? I mean, if all bands manage themselves, you'd be out of business.
Right.
I'm not saying that's what Bruce thought. I mean, you'd have to ask him. But
I tried. I actually went. Joe Faluna, who's been on the 1021 episode, works directly with Bruce, and asked him straight out. There's a guy in forget South Ottawa. There's a guy in Toronto who is very interested in Tears Are Not Enough. I'm so interested. I literally have. You can just, you can hold on to that for a second. That is the official documentation handed out to everybody who attended the recording of Tears Are Not Enough back in 1985. I think there was unless you guys were unavailable because you're on tour, which is a great reason not to do it, and that might be the reason. I'm here to find out the real story.
Is this a conspiracy? Is that where you're going with this?
Well, it's a conspiracy of one.
We should ask Alex Jones why.
He's my next guest. How did you know that? Okay, no, just kidding.
So now let me tell you the truth. Bruce Allen has the best. He has the best person in his office that does a lot of things, and her name's Sandy Bathgate. And I want to get a plug in for her.
Okay.
She's Andy Bathgate, the greatest hockey player. Of
course, yeah.
His lovely daughter, who also worked at Metalworks with me, and she's a dear lady, and she's done a phenomenal job.
This is a mind blow to me.
For Bruce.
Okay.
And there you go. So there's a connection there. So we should ask Sandy. Like, I think Bruce actually loves Triumph, but would you have Sandy talk Bruce into maybe just a half an hour via Zoom with me? I ask a few questions about Tears Are Not Enough. I really want to know where the hell was Triumph and what's the deal with Randy Bachman. This is for a good cause. Famine relief in Africa. We can't let bygones be bygones for famine relief in Africa. Yeah, well, you're going to have to pose these tough questions, I suppose, Mike.
That's my role in all this. Okay, back to Triumph. Thank you for answering the Tears Are Not Enough question. Hamilton Mike wrote in, I'm definitely curious about I'm going to read this question. I don't know if I agree with it, but any animosity that Gil may have had when Rick left Triumph and how it felt to put that behind him when they reunited. And then he also wants to know what you thought of working with Phil X, who replaced Rick and is now enjoying his time in some indie group. I never heard of them. Bon Jovi? I never heard of them. But what can you tell me about Rick deciding to leave Triumph?
Well, those things are never easy. And, we all had feelings. Rick had feelings, Mike had feelings, I had feelings. And it's tough because you're the Three Musketeers, you're brothers. And then, somebody, wants to, get off the island. So, we went through some tough times. There's no doubt about it. It was like a family fight, I guess. And then when it's over, everyone is so relieved. And so, I was talking to Rick on the way over here, as a matter of fact. Oh. So we're in touch all the time. I was at his house a week or so ago. Spent 3 hours in he built a beautiful studio in his house, and it's really magnificent. So I was over there hanging out with him in his studio, and we'll be brothers forever. So we had a squabble, we got over it, and now we're brothers in arms again. As far as Phil's concerned, like, we had a great run with Phil.
Yeah.
Phil is he's one of the greatest guys out there. I mean, not only is he a great guitar player, he's a great singer and so on. I understand why John Bon Jovi loves him so much, but he's just a good guy to hang. When I was on the road with him, we would go jogging and stuff every morning. That was our thing, because he's likes to be healthy, and
right.
I love Phil. And actually now we're getting back together on a lot of projects we're working on, and Phil's involved with Rick and Mike and I again. So it's, kind of a full circle thing that's starting to happen.
Like, I am so happy to hear that you and Rick are so tight now that you were on the phone with him today. Like, that just makes me feel good to know.
Yeah, well,
you kissed and made up.
It's life. Life's too short. It's sometimes it's hard in a family or in a marriage or in a band, to always agree on everything. And, sometimes people get feelings hurt, or they have different opinions, but, you have to get past these things in life. It's just part of what Triumph always was. Mike was very positive in terms of lyrics. And then in terms of when we toured, I said this in our documentary, when people said, what was the key to the band? I said, the key was humor. What do you mean by that? I said, I mean what I said. It was, we didn't get too serious. We always realized that, when you're lucky enough, when 99.999% of bands all flop, including every band I had, every band Mike had, every band Rick had, and then you're lucky enough to happen to get a band that takes off, well, you better be happy. You better not be miserable when you're out there, and you better appreciate your fans, because if it wasn't for them, you would be a flop like you were previously. So you got to be kind of gracious, I think, with your respect for the people that will actually shell out, money to come and see you and applaud and all the rest of it. And so we took the lighter side of the whole thing. We looked at it like, isn't this amazing? Like, we're kind of floating on helium, and it's actually working. This is like a dream that's come true. So that leads to kind of playing around, goofing around. And, when I think of the number of jars of jugs of orange juice I poured in Mike Levine's hair. I can't, or some of the other antics that we would do to keep each other laughing on airplanes. I mean, these were the things that were kind of magic. Otherwise, what happens on the road, like a lot of bands, you lose your mind. Do you think everything's going to go right every day? Of course it isn't. Of course the limo driver's not going to show up. Of course the catering is going to be cold. Whatever it is that you want to complain about, your hotel room's not ready, all of these things. You got to, roll with the punches if you're going to tour. And the way we rolled with the punches was by keeping the jokes flowing.
Great documentary, by the way. It was
Thanks.
fantastic. It was fantastic.
Well, the credit goes to the directors. Sam Dunn and Mark Riccardelli, they really, and Don Allen, his contributions, and Ralph, the writer, Ralph Chapman, they did a magnificent job because to me it was like a patchwork quilt. It was like, I remember seeing, a puzzle when I was maybe 5 years old, and my mom put it on the kitchen table, and all the puzzle pieces were all strewn over, and I looked at it and I thought, well, Mom, it's nothing. It's just a bunch of parts.
Right.
And she said, yeah, well, that's it. You have to put the puzzle together to see what the picture is. And when you're 5 years old, that's a good lesson. But this was the same as an adult doing this documentary. I saw the puzzle pieces and I had no idea what was the picture going to be like when it was finished. But we were very happy with it.
Well, I'm happy to report that we can let Bruce Allen off. The poor Bruce Allen. We were about to attack him. Where the hell's Triumph on Tears Are Not Enough? Well, my correspondent, my very special correspondent, 1236, reports back that the day they recorded Tears Are Not Enough, which was February 10th, 1985, you were at the Beaumont Civic Center in Beaumont, Texas.
I told you. There was a gig, yeah.
So I feel better about that. And I will report back to you that Molly Hatchet was opening.
Yep.
And tickets were $12.75.
That sounds about right. The boys in Molly Hatchet, they were quite a robust crew. And I think Dave just passed away, if I'm not mistaken. And the Winter Brothers, maybe I'm wrong about that. I hope I'm wrong.
You know what? That's one of those things. I've done it. You report somebody's passed away, and then they send you a note like later that day to say, hey, I'm right here. Like, I'm not dead.
Yeah, I guess when I'm thinking of Beaumont, I always think of the Winter Brothers,
Yeah.
Johnny and Edgar, because, that's where they hailed from. And I love Texas so much. I still do. And there's no such thing as a bad city in Texas.
Are you as warm and fuzzy about Texas today than you were 6 months ago?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
to me, like, I don't
You're going to ride or die.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what's going on politically is not, in my opinion, have anything to do with us as people. It's an outcome that I get. It resulted from an election. But when you look at the American people, and as I have done, because I've been to every state, and you look at the Canadian people, as I do, because I've been to every province, and you realize, you know what? We're really lucky. We live in a great part of the world, and there's an awful lot of nice people. And sometimes we elect representatives that do the right things, and sometimes we make a mistake and we elect the wrong people. And let's face it, politicians are like musicians, or they're like anybody else. There's good ones and there's bad ones, and there's some that lose their direction and so on. So right now, this negative discourse that's going on, I think it's good that we're debating the direction of our country or their country or tariffs or these sorts of things. But I think we need to remember that we're all God's children, and we have a lot of friends in America, and the Americans have a lot of friends in Canada, and we should respect each other. So I'm not into booing anthems or anything like this. This is, to me, disrespectful.
See, I agree with you 100%, and part of that respect is that you respect our sovereignty. We're an independent nation. We have no interest in joining your country.
Yes, and I don't think Americans think any differently than you do or I do. I think that they do respect our sovereignty, even if it's in political circles, not being respected at the moment, for whatever reason, whether it's negotiating tactics or, tariff strategy, whatever you call it. I don't know. I don't have any American friends that want to take over Canada anytime soon.
I'm glad to hear that, because I'll have my hockey stick at the border ready to fight, man. Ready to fight. Okay. Moose Grumpy's on the live stream. Just wants to know quickly if Phil X still lives in Mississauga when he's not touring, because in her teens, she was friends with some of Phil's high school band members. Is Phil X still a Mississauga man?
Well, in his heart, I think there's a side of Phil, Phil, really learned to be a great guitar player at his dad's restaurant, which was in Westdale Mall, literally 100 yards from where I grew up, 100 yards.
Wow.
And Phil's a very proud Canadian. He lives in LA full time, but he does come up here. He comes up here for certain family.
He's got to come to Metalworks, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, if Phil comes to Canada, I know about it, and we get together. And so I've been out to see him a couple times. He's played up here, and I go out just to see him play. So we got a good relationship there. And I anytime he's up here, he'll be at Metalworks or we'll be hanging out someplace.
Well, speaking of Phil X, I promised Midtown Gord I'd read his message here because biggest Triumph fan I know. Triumph and Lee Aaron, those were his two favorite musical artists of all time. This is Midtown Gord talking. I won't imitate him. I'll just read it, okay? I have been a fan for a long time. Thank you for all the great years of music. The first Triumph album I bought was Progressions of Power, but loved hearing the songs from Just a Game on the radio. I was too young to see you in high schools. I started high school in 1980, so I am not one of those guys who can say that you played my high school, but I've seen you live many, many times. My question is, how realistic was it that you could have continued after Edge of Excess, which is an amazing album, either with Rick Santers or Phil X, or did it just not feel right?
Yeah, he kind of nailed it. It was, I wouldn't say that it didn't feel right. The band we had with Phil really rocked. It, like I said, he's just a completely different, yet equally, kind of phenomenal guitarist, I would say. And so, yeah, it felt really good, but it might have been, too soon, after Rick, or maybe the audience's memories were too strong from the previous band. It could have just been Mike and I were just getting to that stage of life where we'd kind of been there, done that, and we're starting to think differently about our future and what we wanted to do, how we wanted to spend our time. So it was it's hard really to put it in words, quite honestly. I'm not certain. I know in my case, I had interests in, seeing the studio progress, for example. So
Right.
Metalworks Studios became a big thing for me at the time. And, Mike had some other things that he'd started on that were in different directions and so on. I think the other thing, too, is just touring. So to really make a success out of a rock band, you've got to be willing to travel and tour. And in my father had passed away in 1987. And so by the time we're talking about Edge of Excess, my mom had been alone for about 5-6 years at that point. So she was getting older. And for me to be away as an only child, my guilt meter would go, and I don't want to be away from my mother because she might need me. She needs her son. So there was a lot of things going on at the same time. So it's kind of hard to give you a concise answer. So I guess this is a bit of blah, blah, blah here, but that's the best I can do.
No, I think Midtown Gord appreciates it, and thank you for that thoughtful answer. I realize I'm coming to the end of the time, but I want to talk about Metalworks Studios a little bit more, and I definitely want to talk about the Coalition for Music Education that will host Music Monday on May 5th, 2025. But just before I do that, I want to give you a gift. I want to give you multiple gifts, Gil. Do you accept gifts from independent podcasters?
Well, I already accepted the beer, so where's the scotch?
Well, you know what goes good with the beer? I don't have scotch. Yeah. Listen, I need a scotch sponsor. Thank you. Hook me up, boy. Hook me up. What pairs nicely with Great Lakes beer is I have in my freezer upstairs a frozen lasagna from Palma Pasta. And I know you're a Mississauga man. Palma Pasta have 3 locations in Mississauga and another location in Oakville. And go to palmapasta.com. You'll love this lasagna.
Oh, thank you so much. I know my wife actually shops there. So, yeah.
Good. Your wife has great taste in husbands and in pasta.
I was going to say at least in pasta.
Well, it depends who you talk to. Okay, so don't leave without your lasagna. It's delicious. Thank you, Palma Pasta. Palma Pasta will feed us at TMLX 18 on June 26th at Great Lakes Brewery. Ridley Funeral Home, who, by the way, I learned they only sell caskets made in Canada. So they support Canadian casket manufacturers, and they're fiercely independent here in New Toronto. But they have sent over a measuring tape for you, Gil. Measure.
That's perfect. And as a matter
how
of fact,
far from the hole when you're golfing? I don't know. How
well, I was actually shopping for a casket, so this is very timely. Thank you.
Well, you know what? They have Kiss caskets. Why don't you sell Triumph caskets?
Well, there's a Triumph pinball machine, just like I saw a Kiss pinball machine. So I thought, well, I could take a Triumph pinball machine, turn it into a casket. I could be buried in it. Perfect.
I'll hook you up with Brad Jones from Ridley Funeral Home. We'll make that happen. Okay, wireless speaker from Menaris. And with that, not only will you listen to great music, but you're going to listen to Season 8 of Yes, We Are Open, which is an award-winning podcast from Menaris, hosted by fellow musician Al Grego. He's with the Royal Pains and the Weekends. Shout out to Al Grego. Al Grego went to Regina, Saskatchewan, and he collected stories from small business owners. And I took a note because episode 1 just dropped. This is exciting. I can tell the world that they can listen right now to Kevin Toth, president of Prairie Flying Service. And Al and Kevin delve into the storied history and rich legacy of the company, which began in 1946, founded by 4 World War II pilots. So listen to Yes, We Are Open from Menaris.
I've never gotten this many gifts in one interview.
You know what?
You got anything else you want to lay on me?
I saved the best for last. You ready?
Oh, I'm ready, yeah.
Okay. I know you got a nice automobile out there. Do you like driving a nice, clean car?
Well, yes, obviously.
Obviously. Well, cleaning is only a hassle if you make it one. That's how they feel at Silver Wax. Silver Wax makes pro-grade auto care and cleaning technology easy for everyone to use. They have kits for beginners, experts, and professionals. Everything you need. Go to silverwax.ca. Use the promo code TorontoMike10 at checkout, and you save 10% on your next order. Silver Wax, also proudly Canadian since 1999. They sent over, I'm not kidding, see this bucket?
Oh my God.
That bucket and these 2 spray bottles right here actually.
Holy smokes.
That's a very robust kit from Silver Wax for interior and exterior detailing, cleaning of your automobile.
Yeah, that looks like it has my son's name written all over it.
You know what?
Miles, this gift's for you.
Miles, you will be and why didn't you name him Kilometers? Why Miles?
Well, we'd have to ask Sunny because she was in charge of naming our children.
She had the naming rights. Okay.
Yes. Well, actually, the truth of the matter is my eldest daughter, Lauren, when she was very young, she would say, Daddy, what's the chances we can call him Miles when the baby's born? And then the next day it would be, Dad, what are the chances today we can call him Miles? And they just went on and on and on and on every single day until finally I said to Sonny, you know what? I think Lauren's actually cast the winning vote. I think it's Miles.
I did a similar. So my son, my third born, turns 11 years old tomorrow. That's why there's balloons behind you, by the way. He's not supposed to see them. They're hiding down here so you can surprise him tomorrow. But my wife was lukewarm on the name Jarvis, and I started calling the baby the bump in the belly. Like I started calling the bump Jarvis, and I would sing to Jarvis and talk to Jarvis. And at some point she said she couldn't think of the baby as anything but Jarvis. Like that's sort of a good technique.
Yeah, there you go.
So yeah, your daughter knows what's going on. Okay. 2 more quick shout-outs. One to Nick Iones. He's from Fusion Corp, and he hosts the show Building Toronto Skyline. And we're recording on Friday morning an episode all about the CN Tower turning 50. It was the tallest building in the world for quite some time. We're going to celebrate the CN Tower on Building Toronto Skyline. Thank you, Nick Iones. And last but not least, I know you've got a studio, so you probably have old tech, old electronics, old devices that break. Don't throw them in the garbage, Gil. Go to recyclemyelectronics.ca and put in your postal code and find out where you drop that electronics, the cabling even. Where do you drop it off to be properly recycled? You got it?
That's good. I'll have to pass that on to our operations team at Metalworks. Yeah, they're always looking to recycle properly because we take that pretty seriously.
Oh, glad to hear it. match made in heaven with
Yeah, we don't
recycled
need plastic or transistors in our water or in our land, do we? We've
No, we
done
don't.
a very terrible job over the last few decades, so it's time to clean up.
To know it can make you whole. It's not just a game of notes, it's the sounds inside your soul. The magic of the melody runs through you like a stream. The notes that play flow through your head like a dream. Like a dream. I sing this song for the common man and for the people in despair. I bring my song into the world and I sing it everywhere. The simple truth lies waiting here for everyone to share. So hold on, and I will take you there. Hold on, and I will take you
Gil, I don't want to fade it down, but I want to ask you a tough question. Do you know what's happening May 5th, 2025? This is less than a month away. Do you know what's happening with the Coalition for Music Education?
Yeah, I do. And they're a great organization. And of course, because we have a school we also built many years ago now, adjacent to Metalworks, music education's been a real passion for me. We've started actually a charity now called Sounds Unite Canada, which is another free learning resource for young people in Canada. And the Coalition has got that mission to increase the awareness of music and the great things that it does in society. And, you know, back to your question about some of the strife that we're feeling right now, all of us politically, you know, I look to music as being a great healer in society and a great bridge. It's one thing if you think there's almost nothing else that you could mention where you can take any culture, any group, and you can play music, and it doesn't matter that it may be a totally different genre or style or instrumentation or whatever, but it brings people together and makes them feel good. Well, the Coalition really emphasizes this and doubles down on it with this Music Monday event by having kids in choirs all across Canada from every province. There are over 100,000 participants in this. And this year we were honored that they're using Triumph's song, Hold On, as the Music Monday anthem. This is a song that Rick wrote quite early in his career. And Rick's re-recorded it with some kids, also with some musical instructors and from our school. And a couple of professionals were involved as well. It was produced at Metalworks Studios. So it's a rebirth of the song, so to speak, and it's meant to inspire all the kids in elementary schools and high schools and universities for that matter to get into music, learn why music is so important in our community, in our society, and just push that music message.
Love it so much. I'm so into anything right now that unites Canadians. And you know, this nationwide celebration will unite Canadians in a simultaneous sing-along. Like, everybody is going to sing Hold On, this iconic anthem. Wild, okay. And I was learning more about Music Monday, and it's pretty awesome. Like, we're all seeking connection. We're all seeking unity. And this annual celebration, which started here in Canada, has resonated with communities nationwide and is now being embraced globally. The collective act of singing together fosters a sense of belonging and reminds us that music can bridge divides and unite us all. And it's awesome that we're going to hear this new recording of Hold On with Rick Emmett in a children's choir. That's awesome.
Yeah, the Coalition for Music Education is what you want to check out. They're a great organization headed by Stacey Sinclair, and she works tirelessly to help music educators across Canada and in turn help music students. So all kidding aside, this is, because I like to joke, as you know, but this is a serious effort that's doing a lot of good, I think, for a lot of people.
So I'm going to close, Rick, by asking you just a little bit about Metalworks Studios. One fun thing is, of course, so all these students across the country are going to sing Hold On. So I found on YouTube, one music teacher had a little tutorial for their class. So basically published like a little video to teach the students, because students are at home right now across this country practicing Hold On. Like that's happening right now. Do you want to hear a little bit of this? Just a little bit, okay?
Sure.
So...
Music holds the secret, to know it can make you whole. It's not just a game of notes, it's the sounds inside your soul. The magic of the melody runs through you like a stream. The notes that play flow through your head like a dream. Like a dream.
You know, not an easy song to sing, really. Like, this is going to be tough for the kids.
It's a really tough song to sing. You know, I'm glad that was Rick and not me.
Well, I know, you don't like, I know, I could tell by, if I could see your eyes through those wonderful sunglasses, I could see your eyes are like, I don't think you like the word ballad. Am I right to say that? Like, you sort of, your back got up when I said ballady.
No, I like ballads. I'm not...
But I feel like Rick Ammett he's the ballad guy, and you're the bluesy rocker guy. And to each, you know, some people like the ballads, as you know. Some people want more Hold On. Some people want the Allied Forces. Give me some Gil.
Well, I guess it depends what you call a ballad. So I wouldn't call Hold On a ballad, but I understand why you might say that. It's melodic and dreamy and that sort of thing.
It's like Poison.
When I think of a ballad, I think a slower tempo, right?
Okay, I hear you.
But that's a drummer thing, I guess.
You hear the drummer get wicked. Okay, so Metalworks Studio, I was looking at a lengthy list of artists and albums that have been recorded at Metalworks. So when did you start Metalworks? Like a long time ago, right?
We started in 1977, and it was nothing more than a cassette recorder and, you know, a couple of microphones. And we very, very quickly, the very next year, we moved to our current location. So we're now the oldest recording studio in Canada, as far as I know, or if not the oldest, we're certainly one of the very, very earliest studios.
Over 40 years, right? Yeah.
Well, think about it. We're closer to 50 than 40.
Me too. So here are some acts, okay? I'm going to this is a little list. You don't even have to respond. But Drake, Aerosmith, Katy Perry, Black Eyed Peas, Jonas Brothers. Let me switch to CanCon for a moment. You know I love the Canadian bands. Sum 41. They just played their last gig at the Junos. Feist, Chaos, Sam Roberts. He's an FOTM. Billy Talent, Bare Naked Ladies, Metric, Johnny Reed, Simple Plan. Your buddy Tom Cochran, Our Lady Peace, Tea Party, Backman Cummings, Nelly Furtado, Anne frickin' Murray. She's a hell of a golfer.
Anne's a great golfer, and she recorded her most successful album, which was a double album with 27 songs on it with Tommy West at Metalworks. And she wrote the two nicest letters that we ever had from artists. Because I was always with Anne, I just thought she was a queen, a goddess. Like she was just something else. She wrote us the most beautiful letter after that record. The other letter we got was from Ronnie Hawkins that was equally
romping, not lowest of the lows. Ron Hawkins,
touching. Well, Ronnie spent a lot of time at Metalworks, and I still remember being a kid and being at the Hawk's Nest and just looking up on the stage and seeing how exciting he made the room.
Well, you're bringing it all back to where we started, Levon Helm.
Yeah. And with Anne, it was just, I don't know, just always thought of her. I have thought of the trilogy of Ronnie and Anne Marie and Gordon Lightfoot as being three of my personal favorites, idols, influencers, whatever you want to say.
All three played on Tears Are Not Enough.
Yeah.
Beaumont, fucking Texas. I'm getting pissed off over here. I'm going to ask you about two artists in specifically before we play out here. So, Prince recorded at Metalworks?
Yes, Prince was really great in the studio. He's diminutive, to say the least, and very private as well, but very, very polite, and he worked with several of our engineers, L. Stu Young being one, Chris Carrar, who is still with us today, another. Did some great recording there, and Musicology is an album we'll always be proud of.
Now, I remember going downtown the day this album dropped. It was two albums, actually, but Use Your Illusion 1 and Use Your Illusion 2 by Guns N' Fucking Roses, recorded at Metalworks Studios?
So only part of that record was recorded at Metalworks, but our dear friend Mike Klink, who just did the tribute album on Triumph, he was the producer and had a history with Triumph, and so he really brought Axel and crew up to Metalworks. That's how that happened.
Amazing. And I just chatted with a buddy this morning about the tribute album, Sebastian Bach, and he was just running down some of the artists. Have you heard this album?
Yeah, I've heard all the tracks. So have Mike and Rick, obviously. And we're just really humbled with the great players and great singers that are on there, from Nancy Wilson, the guys in Envy of None, Larry from Styx, and Joey from Anthrax, and Sebastian, of course, who's always been kind of a extended family to Triumph. Just an amazing group. Slash played a guitar solo on there as well. And some great drummers, Kenny Aronoff, Tommy Aldridge, some great guitarists as well. Just a fantastic lineup, to be honest.
Well, I can't wait to hear it. So you said you were humbled, right? But enough about humble Howard Glassman. We know he's a good golfer, okay?
We're back.
If I hear more about humble Howard Glassman and his golf game, I'm telling you, they don't pay me enough.
Well, do you know who was Humble Howard before Humble Howard?
I've heard. I didn't know. I don't know, but I did hear there was a Humble Howard.
Howard Cosell.
Was he Humble Howard?
Yeah. Ask Humble Howard too, if I'm not wrong.
I will.
Just say, was there a Humble Howard before you were Humble Howard? Now,
okay,
he's a kindler, gentler Humble Howard, and he's a great golfer, Humble Howard. But there was Humble Howard 1 was actually
Humble Howard
Cosell
broke the news to America that John Lennon had been shot and killed.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Monday Night Football. Yeah, because it happened on a Monday, and he broke the news. And John Lennon had been on previous Monday Night Football, kind of learning the sport. He's from Liverpool, for gosh sakes. He's kind of learning the sport, American football. Gil, you were awesome, man. You were awesome. Do you know that?
Can you tell my wife?
What's her number? I'll call her live right now. Seriously. That was just a great chat. You were very giving, and you're welcome back here anytime for a sequel. And then I'll really get into it. I got more questions about some of these. The Cranberries, Tina Turner. Did Tina Turner really record at Metalworks Studios?
Yeah, in all three studios at once. She had multiple projects going on, and our three biggest studios, she had them all rolling at once. She was an absolute queen. I can not say enough good things about Tina Turner and how gracious she was, and her manager Roger Davies too was just a real gentleman.
I feel I started my extra too early because David Bowie recorded at Metalworks Studios.
Yes, we had him there, and I would say the same thing. We were the young guns on RCA Records in New York when we first crossed the border as a recording artist, and David was on RCA at the time. And their artist relations man, who was the late, great Pat Kelleher, had David Bowie and Triumph and Elvis were his three clients. So we heard all the David stories before we met David, and they were all, Pat was, don't believe anything you hear. I can tell you David Bowie is a great, great guy, and he will, some of the stories you hear that are kind of outlandish are mostly garbage. And kind of the same with Elvis. He gave us all the great stuff that, it's funny when you find out the truth about people. And so when David finally ended up at Metalworks, we got to see up close and personal what a wonderful person he was to work with. And very, very gracious.
No Bowie.
Sorry, that's Michael Williams telling us no Cleveland, no Bowie. That man would know.
I love Michael Williams.
And that brings us to the end of our 1,667th show. Go to torontomike.com for all your Toronto Mike needs. Much love to all who made this possible. That is Great Lakes Brewery, Palma Pasta, Moneris, Silver Wax. Got a lot of swag, man. RecycleMyElectronics.ca, Building Toronto Skyline, and Ridley Funeral Home. See you all tomorrow when my special guest is Ian Blurton. We'll be talking change of heart. See you all then.